and the 70-kilometer Jiangbei defense line, a large number of turrets need to be installed. These turrets are no mere decorations. Once activated, they consume ghost stones. The amount of ghost stones consumed is not low either, but now, all that's needed is to place a soul sculpture every 100 meters along the 170-kilometer Jiangbei defense line wall, which can greatly reduce the ghost stone consumption of attack-type buildings. That means only 1,700 sculptures are needed, totaling just over 4 million. Damn, that's cheap. After a long while, Chen Fan couldn't help but grin. This architect exchange conference was worth it. It's still necessary to communicate more with other factions. These factions all have good stuff in their hands. This soul sculpture is really excellent. Now this is a sculpture for the people. What defines a good product for the people? High quality and low price. This sculpture perfectly fits those 4 words. After upgrading this building to max level, another building was lit up in the building atlas. Thus, Fan Yu now has 6 max level buildings. He clicked his tongue in amazement as he worked down the wall, heading toward Cave No. 2, preparing to upgrade vehicle offense and defense to level 6. Vehicle offense and defense is currently at level 5. Upgrading to level 6 requires special materials. A few days ago, he acquired a Dargu, which is the material for upgrading vehicle offense and defense to level 6. Today, he'll go upgrade it to level 6. These past few days, Fan Yu has been steadily purchasing small batches of geniuses, earthly treasures, and such special materials. As long as the price isn't steep, he buys them even if he doesn't need them yet. Who knows, they might come in handy later. These things don't spoil anyway. He'll just store them for now. After upgrading to level 6, vehicle offense and defense gained another craftable vehicle. 6. Sea ship. Medium-sized vehicle. Can carry up to 30 people. Fast movement speed. Strong load bearing capacity. Deep draft. Comes with ghost fire and a few attack buildings. Can have external buildings. The hull is fairly sturdy, equivalent to the hardness of a level 1 city wall. For long-term decking, requires supporting maintenance area buildings. Core construction costs 2,000 ghost stones for the sea ship. Chen Fan squinted slightly. This seems more suitable for long-distance voyages than the ancient boat. Maybe he could go see what's on the other side of the Dead Sea. But this journey is a bit dangerous. Who knows, the other side of the Dead Sea might be the Ghost Clan's stronghold. Chen Fan looked at the building blueprint that dropped when he killed the Ghost King. It's just right for use now. From Nameless Mountain to the seaside is only a straight line distance of 1,000 meters. But the side of Nameless Mountain facing the sea is a sheer cliff. To build a port, he'd need to move a bit to the side. After laying over 3,000 meters of copper pipes, Chen Fan finally stood by the sea. A port building formed by white lines. A phantom slowly taking shape by the shore. 1,000 ghost stones turned into white liquid, shot along the copper pipes from Fan Yu all the way, boring into the phantom. As the phantom gradually solidified, the port was officially completed. Chen Fan looked at the port before him, slightly awestruck. Those 1,000 ghost stones were well spent. After the port was built, the ground trembled faintly. A giant turtle slowly approached him from behind, and the turtle's shell was a fixed sea ship. Soon, the sea ship entered the sea, splashing waves all around. Chen Fan stood at the port, looking at the lane roar beside him, not lingering there long. Instead, he headed back home. He planned to dock the sea ship at the port tonight, to see if it could withstand the Ghost Clan's assault. Then he'd prepare a crew to explore what lies deep in the sea. Inside Fan Yu's camp, Chen Fan sat in the room, looking at Wang Mazi, who had been exchanged for. He gestured for him to sit. Then he slowly said, "There's a tough mission, and I can't find the right person for it." Fan Yu has built a sea ship, a large vessel. Its hull defense is equivalent to a level 1 city wall. The ship has several cannon turrets, equipped with ghost fire. It can sail across the dark sea. I want to send people to see what lies in the depths of the sea. But this trip is dangerous. The Sound Talisman's connection has limited range. We can't set up a stronghold on the sea for now. This means we won't be able to contact the propagation, but we still have to go see. Wang Mezi took a deep breath, then knelt on one knee. His face solemn, he lowered his head and said hoarsely, "Prison Lord, Wang Mezi requests this mission. This has always been my dream, to see what's beyond the sea in my lifetime. Even if I die, it'll be worth it. If we encounter danger, I'll find a way to send word back." "Good," Chen Fan nodded lightly. "Then you'll lead the team. Take your men carefully. Set out tomorrow. I'll give you 3 sea ships and enough ghost stones. Remember this. You must turn back when half the ghost stones are used. This operation is codenamed New Continent." "Understood." After Wang Mezi left, Chen Fan walked to the city wall, looked up at the drifting clouds in the sky, his hands clasped behind his back, his jade bracelet silent. What lies beyond the sea? He didn't know. Whether from ancient texts or the information he'd gathered, it seemed everyone assumed the Eternal Night Continent was a single landmass, or perhaps they'd reached the edge of the Eternal Night Continent. Everything was unknown. The next day, all the core members of the propagation gathered at the harbor. At the harbor's berths, 3 ships were docked. All supplies and the sea ships were fully prepared. Several propagation members stood at the bow, ready to cast off. Wang Mezi took another deep breath, then stepped forward to the propagation merchant pavilion master. Wang Mezi, carrying out the new continent plan, requests the prison lord's order. Shen Fan smiled. Set sail. Wang Mezi didn't linger. He led his men, and immediately boarded the 3 sea ships in groups. The ropes connecting the ships to the dock were untied. The sails were raised, flapping loudly. The 3 sea ships slowly sailed toward the depths of the sea. Standing at the stern, Wang Mezi looked back at them, waving goodbye repeatedly. This farewell. Who knew when they'd meet again? Time passed. Shen Fan came to the harbor, gazing at the sea's end. The damp sea breeze hit his face. Over 10 days had already passed. He didn't know how Wang Mezi was doing now. He only knew he wasn't dead yet. Wang Mezi's life tablet hadn't shattered. Beyond that, he knew nothing. But on the contrary, what the hell is this damn thing? Wang Mezi stood on the deck, a blade in his left hand, his right arm tightly gripping the mast, his face twisted as he roared, hard to starboard. Dodge, dodge. It wasn't yet dark, but the massive dark clouds above them seemed ready to press down at any moment, bringing endless darkness. Fierce winds and torrential rain struck relentlessly. The sea ship beneath them wasn't small, but on this sea it was like a tiny tabletop, ready to be swallowed by the waves at any moment. They had set out with 3 sea ships, but now only 1 remained. And the 9th day of the voyage, they encountered a ghostly attack in the night. 2 ships were destroyed. Fortunately, he ordered the abandonment of those ships. They gave up the 2 vessels entangled by tentacles of ghostly creatures resembling octopuses, and transferred the crew to his ship. This ship barely escaped disaster, but they lost many resources, including the most precious water. Most of the fresh water had been stored on those 2 ships. Just as they were hesitating whether to turn back, they spotted an island. Everyone was ecstatic. This meant they had truly discovered a new continent. It was an island independent of the Eternal Night continent, with a vast area. On the island, they found a large number of heavenly treasures and earthly wonders, including a fruit the size of an apple. But upon closer inspection, it had a nose and eyes, just like a monkey's head. He recognized this fruit. It was taught during the breeding training. In the private domain of breeding, there was an extremely important lesson. That was to train the appearance of some rare treasures, and their preservation methods, so they wouldn't fail to recognize them when encountered. That monkey head fruit, so precious in the Eternal Night continent, here covered the mountains and fields. As far as the eye could see, endless and boundless. All members of the merchant guild fell into ecstasy. Everyone knew they had accomplished a great feat this time. Upon return, they would surely receive generous rewards from the Jade Lord. They had truly discovered a new continent. But when they landed to replenish fresh water, and carried some monkey head fruits, preparing to return, they encountered wind and waves, terrifying wind and waves. They could barely control their direction, forced to drift with the waves, drifting farther and farther from the breeding grounds. Just then, without any warning, the dark clouds overhead seemed torn apart by an invisible giant hand. The sea waves suddenly surged rapidly, forming a continuously spinning water dragon pillar hundreds of meters tall, piercing straight into the sky. Zuo Man, the helmsman, and Wang Mezi stood on the deck, clutching the mast, securing themselves tightly, letting out a heart-wrenching roar. He had no idea what that was, but he knew they must not be sucked in, otherwise death was certain. Endless ghost huts were swept along by the waves, rushing past both sides of the ship. Their numbers far exceeded what they usually saw, yet these ghost huts had no time to attack them now, as if fleeing from something. They didn't know how long they had been swept into this sea area by the waves. They couldn't tell day from darkness. In despair, everyone was slammed hard by a massive wave. Many merchant guild members were swept into the sea. The remaining members were all knocked unconscious. After an unknown time, light, long absent, spilled onto the ship's deck. The ship drifted like a lonely boat on the sea. They had finally broke through that region filled with thunder and terrifying waves. But the bad news was they were even farther from the breeding grounds, farther from that Hope Island they had discovered, with no human traces on it, growing farther and farther away. The name of this island was. The merchant guild members excitedly discussed. Wang Mezi, slammed into the cabin by the waves, climbed painfully onto the deck, feeling the calm around him, and the windless stillness, looking back at the sea area covered by black clouds like a boundary line. Behind him, beside the guild master, a pale-faced subordinate, reported with some difficulty, "Many have died, including you and me, only 12 people remain." Wang Mezi turned his head to look at the horizon. Hoarsely said, "Count the ghost stones. Prepare to return." Just then, he suddenly saw a new island ahead, an island much smaller than Hope Island, perhaps the Eternal Night continent, or perhaps a new continent to land on. Wang Mezi quickly adjusted his emotions, ordered to set up camp, prepare to defend against enemies, kill enough ghost huts to go home, since there are no ghost stones, then kill ghost trees to convert into ghost stones. The remaining ghost stones are enough to power the turrets for a while. Soon the ship set sail, turning around, setting off again. The moment the ship anchored by the island, Wang Mazi, standing on the deck, looked at the scene before him. His eyes were full of shock. If the Hope Island they once discovered had no trace of humans on it, this island was covered entirely with human traces. As far as the eye could see, countless ghost hot corpses turned to white bones, and human corpses, and extremely precious ghost stones, were scattered everywhere, uncollected by anyone. Looking out, one could also see many destroyed building ruins. Other than that, there were no living creatures. A dead silence. This is an island destroyed by a ghost nest. Once, there was a human-built base on this island. It was merely crushed within the ghost nest. No human has set foot here since the death. Otherwise, it would be impossible not to collect these ghost stones. They were the first to step onto this island after its destruction. Wang Mazi slowly opened his mouth wide, gazing into the distance. This island was the first one they had seen, but after landing they could faintly make out that behind this island, there were even more islands, scattered like stars. If nothing unexpected happened, those islands should also have been destroyed. In the distance, they could dimly see a stretch of a vast continental coastline. Turning to look back at the sea surface, that expanse of black cloud thunderstorm sea, stretching perhaps hundreds of kilometers, looking out, with no end in sight, was like a sharply defined dividing line, completely separating the area he was in from the ocean of the breeding Dead Sea. Let's go take a look. Wang Mezi did not immediately collect the ghost stones. Instead, he boarded the ship to investigate other islands. 1 island, 2 islands, 3 islands, 4 islands. He thoroughly explored the 6 islands closest to them. Without exception, all the islands had destroyed human structures and a large number of stored corpses. One could imagine that long ago, a terrifyingly massive ghost nest had swept through all the islands, or even the entire continent. And these islands were merely the frontline outposts of this continent. They were the first to fall when the ghost nest struck. Wang Mezi returned to the first island. This was the forefront of the continent, perhaps also the closest battle line to the ghost nest. He climbed to a hill on the island and looked out. He could clearly see that not the entire island was covered with ghost corpses. The vast majority of ghost corpses were concentrated on the northern side of the island, the side facing away from the continent. From this, he could deduce that the ghost nest had emerged from the seabed, surging onto this small island. An endless tide of ghost creatures, after leaving behind a mountain of corpses, had devoured this island, which was in utter despair. Is this the Eternal Night continent? He wasn't sure. Perhaps it was a new continent. One of the pavilion master's trusted confidants trembled and stepped forward slightly. Chirrut, should we go back? Wang Mezi was silent. He turned around and looked at his subordinates behind him, their eyes filled with fear. Every single one of them was wounded. All trace of their initial excitement at setting sail was gone. After enduring the baptism of the sea, they no longer wanted to take risks. Wang Mezi did not hesitate. For even a moment, he nodded firmly and said hoarsely, "We must bring the news back. Let the prison master know there is hope." The group standing behind Wang Mezi lowered their heads and did not react. They were afraid. They didn't want to brave that thunderstorm sea again. To return, they had to pass through that thunderstorm sea. Pavilion master, the same confidant, spoke again, his voice low. Ghost creatures devour ghost stones. Since these ghost stones haven't been devoured, it means this destroyed continent has no more ghost creatures. It's safe here. Perhaps we can what? Can stay here? Wang Mezi laughed. Why didn't you say so earlier? We should have brought a woman along before setting sail, shouldn't we? What are a bunch of rough men like us going to do staying here? Besides, this island doesn't look like it has any food. What will we eat? Try it. This thunderstorm sea must have an end, right? If we advance along the edge of the thunderstorm sea, we might be able to go around it and find our way home. And if we broke through once, we can definitely break through a second time. The man who had spoken earlier looked up at Wang Mezi, his eyes red-rimmed. I'll be blunt. If these ghost stones were really so easy to take away, the one who once guarded Nameless Mountain would have taken them long ago. Why would they leave them for us? That thunderstorm sea domain is surely a death trap. We were lucky to survive it once. Can we survive a second time? I even suspect we might have died long ago. This place isn't some new continent at all. It's the underworld. Or maybe we're all poisoned. Everything before our eyes is just an illusion. Going back means certain death. Sect Master, I really don't want to die. The man's voice grew louder and louder, hysterical and the verge of emotional collapse. Before his words faded, Wang Mezi stepped forward. His hand formed a blade and struck the back of his subordinate's neck, knocking him unconscious. He held him in his arms. Then he looked at his ragged, tattered subordinates. After a long silence, he rasped, "We have to go back. We must go back. We must bring the news back. These ghost stones here can ensure the Janbei defense line is built without fail. Don't you want to start a family?" Don't you want your children to live in a place untouched by ghost dwellings? I swear I'll lead you all back alive. After resting on the island for a night, they set sail at dawn the next day. The ship sailed along the thunderstorm sea domain for nearly 30 full days. The thunderstorm sea domain showed no end in sight. It stretched like the sky itself. They simply couldn't bypass this stretch of thunderous sea. The ghost stones stored in the cabin couldn't afford them any more waste. Everyone, Wang Mezi stood on the deck, first glancing at the left side, where lightning flashed and thunder roared, the sea shrouded in black clouds. Then he looked at the subordinates on the deck, all raising their heads to meet his gaze. Fear had vanished from their eyes. They knew there was no turning back now. Their eyes were filled with great and madness. After a brief pause, he grinned. Before joining the prosperity sect, I, Wang Mezi, was just like all of you. Never did anything earth-shattering. When Lord Qin asked me to write my file, under highlight moments, I wrote none. But after today, as long as we make it back alive to bring the news back, even dying in this life will be worth it. This is the biggest thing we've ever done. Today isn't just my highlight moment, it's the highlight moment for all of you. If we return alive, honor will be shared by all of us. But if heaven has no eyes, and we truly never return, then let this sea be our grave, and we'll be buried together. Wang Mezi took a deep breath, scanning each face. With a fierce roar, he raised his large blade, and bellowed, "Card to port, Ted home." The next moment, the ship slowly turned, like a blade sheathed. It charged forward into the thunderstorm sea tomb. Meanwhile, 40 days had passed since Wang Mezi set sail. 40 days had gone by. During this time, Chen Fan had crafted countless suspension rods. These he obtained at the Architects Exchange Conference. A white-grade item. It could directly adhere to building surfaces and move freely. So Chen Fan laid copper pipes across Janbei, Jianding, Jiangxi, and Jiannan 4 regions. Then he attached crafted hanging baskets to the copper pipes, building 4 high-speed rail lines spanning Janbei and the 4 regions. This significantly sped up exchanges among the 4 Janbei areas. During these days, he also built 7 signal towers to expand the range of ship sound talismans. Tomorrow marks the official launch of Prosperity Sect communications. Yet at such a crucial moment, Chen Fan stood alone, deep inside Cave No, one of the Prosperity Sect camp. Here, a large chamber had been specially carved out, named the Fall of Fate. Inside were placed all the life tablets of Prosperity Sect members. Most tablets remain intact, except for those on Chengji's row. Many had split in half from the middle, now dim and lifeless. The entire Shenge had only 12 life tablets, all emitting a faint white glow. Among them, Wang Mezi's token was still intact. Chen Fan stood in the stone chamber, watching this scene with a blank expression. He knew the group that went to sea had encountered a crisis. There was nothing he could do. The distance was too great. He didn't even know where Wang Mezi was. He could offer no help. All that remained was to leave it to Wang Mezi himself. Then he left the stone chamber. The development of Fanyu was getting better and better, but as the force grew, people would always die. Perhaps it was just a pang of guilt he didn't want those who had followed him from the rainy season and fought their way out to die. He wanted them to witness the rise of Fanyu with their own eyes, to see his dream come true. Young master, the new year is almost here. In the wall of Cave No. 1. Zhu walked up to Chen Fan and said in a low voice. It was now the end of February in the 379th year of the Yanai calendar. The new year was just around the corner. The men below were asking whether they should put up some couplets in Fanyu. Chen Fan paused for a moment, then said softly, "You handle the arrangements." Spring was about to begin. It was time for a rest. After Kuafu withdrew, Wang Qi took the chance to step up and report, "Prison Master, the ghost stones stored in the camp have now reached 9.38 million. We're about to break the 10 million mark. Line 1 alone averages 100,000 ghost stones in daily revenue. The other 3 lines just started official operations today. No specific data yet. In these 40 days, Fanyu Line 1 alone brought in 4 million ghost stones. If we can maintain this rate, just Fanyu Line 1 could bring in over 30 million ghost stones annually." Ghost stones. It won't stay like this forever. Chen Fan shook his head. He said calmly, "This is a high-speed steel carriage. People are in the novelty phase. Once that passes, it will gradually settle back to a normal range." Wang Qi was about to continue his report when the sound talisman in Chen Fan's bosom grew slightly warm. He picked it up, and from it came Wang Mezi's weak but proud voice. "Prison Master, Cheng has completed the new continent plan and returned. We have safely arrived at Fanyu Port." Chen Fan was momentarily stunned, then hurriedly worked down the city wall. Zhu Fu and Wang Qi quickly followed to the port. There, a battered sea vessel was docked at the port, surrounded by many Fanyu members. Wang Mezi and his group of 12 stood there, their clothes tattered, in rags, arms slung over each other's shoulders, supporting one another, their bodies covered in wounds. Each face was deathly pale, but their eyes shone with a golden light. The light of those who had stared death in the face. Prison master, said Wang Mazi, standing on solid ground. After a long time, he felt unsteady and let out a slight shiver, then looked at Chen Fan striding toward him. His eyes red, he grinned and said, mission accomplished, we're back. Chen Fan strode up to the group, his gaze swept over each face, then he said, heal your wounds first. Chen Fan glanced at the deep, bone-exposing wounds on Wang Mazi and said with some heartache, men, take them to ride the high-speed train back to Fanyu for treatment. High-speed train. What's that? I'll explain later. Hurry. Wang Mazi and his group boarded the high-speed train and quickly returned to Fanyu. Along the way, they curiously looked out the window, but before they could see much, they arrived. The logistics pavilion members, already prepared, carried Wang Mazi and his group on stretchers quickly to the altar. The altar healed wounds very fast. Soon, all of Wang Mazi's group's injuries were fully healed, though their faces still looked somewhat pale. That was due to a lack of nourishment, which would need gradual recovery. Chen Fan alone received Wang Mazi and his group in the life hall, and Wang Mazi truthfully reported his experiences at sea and the discovery of the new continent as they happened. After 1 instant sticks time, Wang Mazi finished his report. Chen Fan stood silent for a long time, lost in thought. He hadn't expected that Wang Mazi would truly exceed expectations and complete the new continent plan. Actually discovering a new continent, this had completely surpassed his expectations. The real was a second continent, beyond the eternal night continent. Moreover, a vast amount of ghost stones lay scattered across that land. If they could land there, it would be an immense fortune, enough not only to build the Janbei defense line, but even to forge a perfect form Janbei defense line. Chen Fan took the ghost skin map Wang Mazi handed him. The ghost skin map in his hand was blurred, unreadable, but when sailing on the Dead Sea, several clearly marked points would appear on it. Points Wang Mazi had marked, representing Hope Island, Thunderstorm Sea region, and the new continent. After a long while, Chen Fan rose and looked at the crowd, saying softly, thank you all for your efforts on behalf of Fanyu. The information you brought back is invaluable. You've traveled far and endured much. Rest today, and tomorrow Fanyu will hold a celebration banquet for everyone. Tonight, we bid farewell to our fallen brothers. Chen Fan stepped out of the meeting hall and looked at Quack Hu, who stood guard outside. He ordered, postpone tomorrow's Fanyu communication for now. Fanyu will celebrate Shenji's return internally. Tonight, we send off our fallen brothers. Night fell quickly, and eternal night shrouded the entire world. Chen Fan stood within the ghost fire's range at the harbor. Zhu Huju Mal and Wang Tui stood behind him. Further back, stood a crowd of Fanyu's formal members, all dressed in black. Today everyone had gathered here. Straight ahead stood a stone tablet, a monument erected by the seaside. On it was clearly inscribed, in the 379th year of the Yunai calendar, Fanyu's Shengji sailed the seas to seek new frontiers, opening a northern path. Yak Huolin, Fengyi, Yanjai, Gituo, and all others perished beneath the dark sea, their souls silenced in the raging waves. The sea frontier was thus opened, and their loyal bones lie in eternal rest. Their merit in expanding the territory shines like metal and stone. Their glory in opening the frontier rivals the stars. Thus, we take Ghost Valley as a monument, and Kaohsiung is our mount. Fanyu's people, Dangxi, is not forgotten. This was a farewell. Standing at the front of the crowd, the 12 surviving Shangji members, 10 red-rimmed eyes, staring fixedly at the stone tablet. They had witnessed their brothers' deaths firsthand. They felt regret that those brothers could not stand here with them, but also relief that the prison lord valued them enough. Those with families had also received sufficient compensation. Good, Wang Mazi muttered softly, holding back tears. The night passed quickly. Dawn came. According to the original plan, today was supposed to be the official launch of Fanyu's communication network, but now the Fanyu camp was bustling with activity. Large tables were set up side by side, laden with fine dishes. Today was the celebration banquet, honoring Shangji's safe return and the discovery of the new continent. Yes, this news was not kept from Fanyu's formal members. There was a risk of leaks, but Chen Fan also wanted to see if there were any moles within Fanyu. If there were, this bombshell would be enough to force the mole to reveal himself. Chen Fan sat alone on the city wall, gazing at the lively preparations outside. He lay back in a rocking chair, his knuckles unconsciously tapping on the armrest, thinking of the new continent, a land covered in ghost stones, ravaged by ghost nests, that meant immense wealth, essentially free for the taking. All they needed was to land and claim it. The speed of wealth accumulation was far faster than when he was in Jangbei, enough for him to forge an absolutely secure Jangbei defense line. But how to reach the new continent was the problem. That island, named Cope Island by Shangji, was manageable. 7 days after Shangji set sail and was submerged, he discovered this sea island. If the straight line distance to the target was known, about 5 days would suffice. This island was some distance from the Thunderstorm Sea. As long as the waves didn't drag him into the Thunderstorm Sea, Going ashore to gather resources carried little risk, but that new continent was isolated by the Thunderstorm Sea. To cross the Thunderstorm Sea was no simple task. According to Wang Mazi, it was more like a forbidden realm, or rather a heavenly punishment. Humans could absolutely never set foot there. Relying on luck to cross the Thunderstorm Sea would cost countless lives. Breeding couldn't produce enough people to fill that void, unless he narrowed his eyes slightly, unless he initiated a sufficiently massive project, an undersea tunnel. But multiple possibilities had to be considered. Although mountain sea moss could stabilize the tunnel, the undersea tunnel had to withstand immense pressure. Mountain sea moss was merely a green treasure. Could it really endure such pressure? Secondly, the depths of the sea were entirely unknown. No one knew whether there might be ghostly dwellings that would destroy their undersea tunnel. Yet if they could truly set foot on the new continent and bring back a large batch of ghost stones, Nathan Jade would completely astonish the world. Faced with such temptation, even the greatest difficulties had to be set aside. He turned his head to look at the one sunbathing on the city wall. Comforting such a massive project would probably exhaust Weiwei to no end. These days, he'd have to feed Weiwei some good food. The next day, Chen Fan brought Weiwei to the harbor. Weiwei obediently lay on the ground, waiting for instructions to dig. A hint of inquiry flashed in Weiwei's eyes. Dig where? Dig toward the seabed. Keep digging forward along the seabed. Weiwei stood expressionless and silent, a question mark floating above its head. Chen Fan was momentarily at a loss for words. The workload did seem rather large. Weiwei didn't ask for monthly wages, so he felt a bit embarrassed to work it so hard. This workload, even if put on a donkey, it would be exhausted. Food guaranteed. A golden light flashed in Weiwei's eyes, and it immediately grew excited. It then plunged straight from the air to the ground, its claws like sharp blades digging swiftly into the earth. In no time at all, it left a straight, deep well on the surface, leading deep underground. Soon, a sufficiently deep well appeared beside the harbor. He built copper pipes along the well's walls, then took a high-speed elevator to the well's bottom. This place was already deep enough, at least far exceeding the current depth of the seabed. Weiwei stopped digging vertically and began digging horizontally. As Weiwei dug, he followed behind, laying copper pipes. Meanwhile, wherever the copper pipes were laid, tail white bones extended from behind, fixing the tunnel so it wouldn't collapse. Yes, he had to work alongside Weiwei throughout this entire task, without the guarantee of copper pipes and mountain sea moss. If an accident occurred, Weiwei would find it very hard to crawl out alive. This massive project required his full participation. He named this project the New Continent Tunnel. Straight through to the new continent. Time passed slowly. Weiwei dug earth. Chen Fan laid copper pipes. The two worked together quite harmoniously. When night fell and eternal darkness descended, it wasn't because Chen Fan's biological clock was so precise, but because he saw the copper pipes behind him light up. Inside the copper pipes, the flowing cold white ghost fire only emitted a faint yellow glow. After eternal darkness fell, he looked behind him. The ghost fire light from the copper pipes enveloped the entire tunnel, a long stretch that looked utterly surreal. After digging for a day, he could no longer see the tunnel entrance. The digging speed on the seabed wasn't as fast as laying high-speed rail on land, but it wasn't slow either. Weiwei was truly giving it his all, probably resting the entire time. Chen Fan looked at Weiwei and said softly, "Let's stop here for today. Go back and rest. We'll continue tomorrow." The next day, Chen Fan took Weiwei to board the high-speed rail, heading once again to Port City. Suddenly, he saw someone walk into the breeding pit and approach him. "You're back." Chen Fan looked at the person before him and smiled. This person was none other than Kai Yu. Over a month ago, Kai Yu had bid him farewell, saying he needed to kill some people. Now, over a month later, he had returned, prison master, and back. Kai Yu seemed much lighter than before, a smile and a hint of ease on his lips. "I've severed my past life. From now on, I, Kai Yu, will live in you. Have you completed your severing?" "It's done." 2-1. Naturally, a 1. Good. Chen Fan nodded. He revoked all permissions on Kaiyu's identity token, then looked at Wang Kui beside him, and instructed, "This guy has completed his severing. Don't let him into the camp. Find out exactly who won. I'll deal with it when I return tonight. Let's go." Chen Fan looked at Kaiyu and smiled, nodding. Then, without looking back, he took Weiwei and continued digging the tunnel. For this new continent tunnel, his breeding operations and communications would have to be delayed for a while. The new continent tunnel was the top priority right now. Inside Faniyu's camp, several people, led by Xiao Qiu, stood outside the city wall, their faces stern as they surrounded Kai Yu, and the turrets mounted on the city wall were all aimed at Kai Yu. Everyone's eyes were full of scrutiny and threat. "Sec Master Qiu, the Shadow Pavilion handles breeding intelligence. Didn't you gather intel on his severing?" "No." Xiao Qiu shook his head. I know who he went to kill, but after that, there was no news. Severing is a special cultivation method for Caillou. Caillou's past was tragic. His heart full of hatred, he gathered all negative emotions to greatly boost his cultivation speed. But the downside was that negative emotions gradually accumulated, forming another self. Both possessed full combat power, and fought to the death. If Caillou died, that other self would take over and live as Caillou. If the other self died, then this special mental technique of Caillou's would have no more negative effects, and would completely sever past hatred. Chao Qiu studied Caillou thoughtfully. This guy usually acts aloof, with a face that begs to be punched. Now he seems much more approachable. He must have truly severed his negative emotions. No, Wang Qi shook his head firmly. When emotions reach an extreme, they reverse, like extreme anger turning into laughter, or extreme joy into tears. This guy is acting extremely easygoing now, even smiling while being questioned by us. It's very likely that his emotions have hit an extreme anger turning into laughter. This precisely proves that this Caillou is made of negative emotions. Caillou has a point. Caillou sighed helplessly, glancing at everyone. If I hadn't been afraid you'd cry seeing me die, I really should have performed the severing in front of you, so you could see me break through in battle. That impressive side of me, that sounds like something he'd say, Chao Qiu affirmed. He must really be observing. Then the other side, Zhu Mo, with the Zhanji members as usual, rode skeletal horses, patrolling the streets with blades, looking at the lively scenes on both sides of the road, his eyes full of smiles and satisfaction. He was quite satisfied with his current life. The flourishing sect he had built perfectly matched the image of the strongest force he had envisioned. If only, besides the monthly salary, they also arranged wives for him, he would be content. He still hadn't found a woman yet. He also wanted someone to warm his bed at night. Just then, suddenly, his brows furrowed. Not far ahead, a woman in an embroidered laundress, accompanied by several attendants, walked down the street with a curious expression. This was perfectly normal. Since Fan City had developed to this point, every day, young ladies from various factions, young masters, and the like strolled through Fan City with their attendants. But beside an old man behind this woman, a translucent panel slowly materialized, one that only he could see. Age, 179 years. Zhu Mo showed no reaction at all, merely brushing past them silently. However, after leaving, he quickly slipped into an alley, ticked up a sound transmission talisman, and said in a low voice, "Contact the prison master for me. I found a 179-year-old person, right now, inside Fan City." This was a skill he had acquired by chance. Skill name, Dragon Seeking True Age. Skill grade, White Grade Skill. Effect, can observe the true age of all living beings. On his daily patrols, his greatest hobby was checking how old everyone was. Miss, be cautious. In the bustling street, the old man following behind the woman, in the embroidered laundress, turned to gaze at Zhu Mo's retreating figure. A glint of gold flashed in his murky pupils. He said in a low voice, "I think we may have been discovered." The woman frowned. "Did we reveal any flaws?" "No," the old man shook his head. "But according to the normal patrol route, he should have continued forward, not turned into that alley. He's likely going to report the information. Maybe he just changed his patrol route on a whim. That's also possible." Moreover, the woman tilted her head, her eyes curving like crescent moons, and said with a smile, "Even if we are discovered, what does it matter? It's not like we're anything shameful. Before father left, didn't he say we should properly get to know the mortal realm? Perhaps getting close to Chen Fan will help us learn more." The old man did not answer immediately. He simply lowered his eyelids, and said in a low voice, remaining silent for a long time before saying, "Entering the city will bring many troubles." But the woman paid it little mind, continuing to walk into each shop along the street with some delight. At the harbor, Chen Fan stood on the shore, gazing into the distance over the sea. He wasn't sure exactly how far they had dug last night, nor where they had reached. By his estimate, it was probably about 30 kilometers. How long will it take to dig all the way to a new continent? He looked down at YY beneath him, muttering to himself, "Can I find YY a mate? Breed him or something. Have a few litters, and then they can all dig together. That would be more efficient." The copper pipes buried on the seabed last night had not gone out, and no ghostly intruders had invaded the tunnel's coal tower. For now, the rainy season's effects were unknown, but at least at this point, the plan for the new continent tunnel was feasible. It just took a lot of time, requiring diligent, continuous effort for a while. Just then, he received a message from Zhu Mo, and his brows slightly furrowed. "July, Chao Qiu, go to Fan City and wait for me to meet the guests." Inside Fan City, Chen Fan looked at the group led by Zhu Hu and said with a smile, "July, Zhu Hu, you two follow me. Chao Qiu, conceal yourself in the shadows, and see which guests have come calling. Perhaps it's a distinguished guest from the Guangxi Plains." Soon, Chen Fan with Zhu Hu and Caillou met them head-on. A woman in an embroidered laundress, looking around with a curious expression, stood in place, leaning on an emerald walking stick. King Zyros said, I'm Chen Fan, Lord of the Mortal Realm. May I ask, how should I address you? The old man standing behind the embroidered dress woman's expression slightly stiffened. He had I guessed that our group's identity might have been exposed. But after all, it was just a guess. I never expected their identities to truly be exposed. And it came so swiftly. The woman in the embroidered lawn dress gazed at the man before her. Chen Fan, too, was leaning on an emerald-handled staff. Her eyes were full of curiosity. So you're the one who founded Fan Yu. I heard you're a very skilled architect. But how come you look so young? And you all are? Chen Fan asked with a chuckle, continuing his inquiry. He appeared extremely easygoing. In truth, he really was a person who seemed quite approachable. People were all killed in the shadows. What did that have to do with him? The elder behind Lady Chen Yu stepped forward, clasped his hands in a fist salute. After bowing respectfully, he said in a deep voice, We hail from the He family of Jianan. We have come solely to observe the return journey. We bear no ill intentions. At this moment, he had to step forward and speak. This is the young lady's first time leaving the clan. Her words may be a bit reckless. It wouldn't do to make enemies because of that. The He family of Jianan. Chen Fan nodded thoughtfully. Soon, the transmission talisman in his bosom grew hot. After pulling it out and listening for a while, he said with a smile, There's no such faction in Jianan, is there? It truly is Jianan. The elder paused for a moment before speaking firmly. We are the He family of Jianan, a reclusive clan. We rarely act in the outside world. Our reputation here's not spread far. I see. Please, come inside. Chen Fan smiled. He gestured for them to follow, as he led them toward the adjacent manor. After a moment, Chen Fan poured them each a cup of tea. He asked with a smile, A leaf falls, and one knows autumn is near. From your bearing, I can tell that the He family behind you is no weak force. Why then do you choose to live in seclusion? The woman in embroidered silk had fallen silent. She sat obediently to the side. The elder had fully taken over the conversation. After a slight hesitation, he addressed Chen Yuzhu. Do you eat meat? Of course. Is it fragrant? Quite so. But if Lady Chen Yuzhu witnessed the slaughter firsthand, would it still taste as good? Chen Fan nodded ambiguously. He gave no direct response. As the saying goes, a gentleman stays far from a kitchen. The wrinkles in the elder's face rippled like waves. He said in a low voice, The He family of Jianan does have some power, but it cannot protect all the people of the world. Every year, we can only watch helplessly as the common folk are devoured by ghostly fiends. Since we cannot save them, we might as well close our eyes and look away. That way, we feel less guilt. Just as if Jianbei City were being ravaged by ghostly fiends right now. I believe you, Lady Chen Yuzhu, would feel some discomfort in your heart. Even if you didn't know anyone in Jianbei City, Jianbei is still your territory. But if you choose to seclude yourself, you can reduce that sense of guilt. Focus only on yourself, ignoring the suffering of the world. Chen Fan nodded thoughtfully. This was the first time he had heard such an explanation for seclusion. It sounded somewhat reasonable. This is my first encounter with a reclusive clan. Since there's one, there must be others. So you all hold this mindset for seclusion? Not entirely. The elder shook his head. The main reason is that the eternal night, like the tides, will eventually recede one day. The ghostly fiends in the eternal night cannot be killed off completely. Slaying more fiends holds no meaning. Preserving oneself to survive the eternal night, that is the primary reason reclusive clans choose to hide. It will eventually recede one day. Does Lady Chen Yuzhu not know this? Chen Fan smiled. The elder's brow furrowed slightly. The eternal night of the eternal night continent is not the first time it has descended. It has come before, and in the end, it always receded. Like the tides, rising and falling. Rising and falling, you say? Chen Fan leaned back in his chair. He lifted the tea in his hand, took a sip, and said nothing. He did not argue this point. But one thing he could be certain of. The last time the eternal night descended, he truly did not know whether it receded on its own, or was driven back by the combined forces of ancient powers. They were still driven back by the combined forces of the ancient powers. But what is certain is that eternal night will not exist forever. There will come a day when it recedes. There will be tides that rise, but not necessarily tides that fall. But he didn't want to discuss something so meaningless. Not speaking of this, Chen Fan changed the subject. He looked at the clearly aged elder before him. What business brings a newcomer like you to Fan City? According to the information provided by Zhu Mo, the elder before him was nearly 200 years old. The eternal night calendar had only existed for a little over 300 years. This fellow had lived through most of eternal night. First, to observe Fan City. Second, to open a shop here. Open a shop? Chen Fan smiled as he refilled his tea. Aren't you in a closed market? Do you still need to open a shop? Even a closed market needs ghost food to sustain itself. The elder, Chen Cheng, replied. In truth, several shadow clans in Jianan have businesses outside. They just don't operate under the clan's name. The connection between each shadow clan and their own business is sometimes once every 5 years, sometimes once every 3 years. Contact is infrequent. Tell me, what kind of shop do you want to open? A weapon shop. This is the inherited craft of the He clan in Jiangnan. Weapon shop means customizing a treasure for Yishu, greatly increasing the Yishu's combat power. Many factions have Yishu. In the past, buyers were hard to find, but now all the influential factions will have it in Fan City, making it much easier. There's still such a trade. Chen Fan squinted slightly. Ban Cheng suddenly stood up after a moment. Smiling, he said, Fan City welcomes all factions from the world to visit. Then I won't linger any longer. I still have matters to attend to. I'll take my leave first. The elder hurriedly stood up. Lord Chen, please go slowly. Fan City. Working on the street, Ju Fu sidled up to Chen Fan and whispered, Young master, aren't you going to ask about their age? Maybe they have a method to extend life. Extend life? Chen Fan shook his head. A person who has lived over 200 years, that's an old monster. There would be a weariness in their eyes. That old man, though old in age, doesn't act like an old monster in his behavior. His age is false. It seems he extended his life through methods like hibernation. This should also be why the Shadow clans have so little business contact with the outside world. Have Shao Qiu thoroughly gather information about the He clan in Jiangnan and the Shadow clans. Also, check whether the Dan sect we destroyed, the Fengyu Tower, the Jiangnan Shui clan, and other factions are actually businesses of some Shadow clan in the outside world. If there is indeed a connection, we must strike first, lest we leave behind a root of disaster. Have the members of Fengyu and the Medicine King Valley keep their mouths tight. Don't let any news about YY leak out. Understood. Zhu Hu nodded solemnly. By the entrance of the Shadow Harbor, YY was lying on the ground, cautiously slipping a braised chicken leg into his mouth. His lantern-sized eyes slowly closed, his face filled with enjoyment. But Chen Fan's arrival interrupted him. YY, come on. Keep working. YY let out a whimper, indicating he understood. Then he eagerly dove into the deep well beside him, ready to continue digging the undersea tunnel. Chen Fan didn't say much and followed. He had also considered whether to forge a set of specialized tools for YY to speed up the digging. But later, he thought it unnecessary. YY's digging speed was fast, mainly thanks to his own claws. That was his natural talent. Whether for digging holes or breaking formations, it was highly effective. Adding specialized tools might even have a negative effect. A new day had just begun. Inside the undersea tunnel, one man and one beast continued their work for the day. Chen Fan followed behind YY, laying copper pipes. While looking back, the empty undersea tunnel gave one an absolute sense of solitude, especially since it was not yet dark, and the ghost fires had not been lit. The undersea tunnel was pitch black. Only the stones placed in the carriage emitted a faint glow. He lowered his head and gazed at the ghost skin map in his hand. On this voyage out to sea, within the Thunderstorm Sea region, Wang Mazi had only discovered this single island. He named it Hope Island. Now, Hope Island lay at the edge of the ghost skin map, signaling that his fleet was slowly drawing near. At this speed, it would take at least 2 months. It really would take a long time to dig. The speed at which they were tunneling was far slower than Wang Mazi sailing across the sea. Much slower. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. Chen Fan stood alone on the city wall, within the breeding camp, gazing outward. He chuckled, leaning back against his chair. Finally, we've dug through. We've been busy for a full 2 months. Over these 2 months, most of his time had been spent digging the undersea tunnel with YY. He had been worried the entire time whether the mountain sea moss could hold up. After all, this undersea tunnel was far too long, especially deep beneath the ocean. It had to withstand immense pressure, and there was always the risk of water seepage. But the mountain sea moss truly proved trustworthy. It held up throughout the entire process, and even managed to be waterproof. All I can say is, though it's only a green-grade heavenly treasure, the mountain sea moss is indeed a treasure even a ghost king would struggle to find. It's worth every bit of its value. Let's go. Chen Fan stood up and walked toward the city gate. Phase 1 of the undersea tunnel is complete. Let's go check out Hope Island. A high-speed train was parked on the ground at the port. Chen Fan, Quan Hu, and the other core members of the breeding camp all boarded the train. YY stayed outside the carriage, gripping the edge. The next moment, the train started, racing along the copper pipes laid deep beneath the sea, speeding toward the depths of the ocean. The undersea tunnel was extremely long. There was no light ahead, only pitch-black darkness, and the ghost fires had not been lit. The train shot forward through the dark tunnel, at breakneck speed. Finally, after nearly 20 cups of tea's time, the train beneath them suddenly made a 90-degree upward turn, beginning to climb rapidly. Sunlight poured in from the tunnel's opening. When the train burst out from underground like a volcanic eruption and came to a steady stop atop a mountain, they had arrived. This place was Hope Island. The train exit was at the peak of a mountain on Hope Island. Chen Fan stepped off the train, stood at the edge of the mountain cliff, and gazed into the distance at the island on the horizon. All around was an endless ocean, with no land in sight. This was a solitary island. and farther away, he could faintly make out a region shrouded by thunderclouds. That was the Thundercloud Sea, but it was quite far from Hope Island, a considerable distance away. Looking down at the island, at a glance there were no signs of human footsteps. Heavenly treasures lay everywhere as if it were a bountiful harvest. Plump monkey head fruits hung from the branches, their numbers unknown, but certainly not few. Xianxia smiled. Monkey head fruit is a type of heavenly treasure, not judged by its monetary value. Upgrading a city wall from level 6 to level 7 requires not only 7,000 ghost stones, but also 1 monkey head fruit. One section of wall needs 1 fruit, meaning 1 meter. If it were just an ordinary camp, it might be possible to gather enough, but if he wanted to upgrade the entire Janbei defense line to level 7 city walls, the number of monkey head fruits needed would be absolutely terrifying. Back then, he had wondered where to find so many monkey head fruits, unless he went to the mountain of flowers and fruit, and today he had finally found that very mountain, a mountain of flowers and fruit belonging to the breeding camp. To him, Chen. Heavenly treasures stretched as far as the eye could see, ready for him to pick. Of course, to upgrade the entire Janbei defense line to level 7 city walls, he would need more than just a massive quantity of monkey head fruits. It also requires a massive amount of ghost stones. In the ancient era, the city wall of the Janbei defense line was ranked as a tier 4 first class, otherwise it wouldn't have been breached. Chen couldn't help but grin. If he built a tier 7 city wall, along with a host of Shikigami cannons and anti-aircraft guns, and the Janbei defense line still fell, he wouldn't run either. He'd just die in Janbei. He'd accept it. A tier 7 city wall could reach up to 50 meters, a 50-meter high wall blocking the Janbei coastline. He was really curious what kind of ghostly monstrosity could still break through his Janbei defense line. Take a look. Chen glanced at the stunned lame monkey beside him. The few of them grinned, and he waved his hand grandly. All of you, go down and see what heavenly treasures there are. Then, among the newly recruited border personnel, find a batch without families. The undersea tunnel is the core of the breeding program. Top secret participants in this project, the breeding border personnel, will be unable to return to Yaonai continent for a short time. After harvesting Hope Island, they'll stay in the new continent. When losing ghost time, they must endure loneliness. Their treatment will be upgraded to that of full breeding members. Breeding members are mostly loyal and tight-lipped, thanks to strict screening and training, and because no one wants to lose this job, but even the tightest lips risk leaks. He couldn't yet accept the existence of the new continent being leaked to the outside. Thus, the best way to keep them quiet was to have them stay here for a while, not returning to Yaonai continent. Dumo worked down the mountain to the seaside. He looked toward the jungle in the center of the island, where heavenly treasures covered the mountains and fields. He stood there in a daze, unable to believe there was such a place beyond Yaonai continent. Though he knew Shangji had discovered Hope Island, only when he actually set foot on this island did he understand how difficult it was to find this island in the vast ocean. It required not only the determination to explore the world, but also the perseverance to endure loneliness, and enough luck. Just then, suddenly, he felt something soft and squishy under his foot. He instinctively lifted his foot and looked down, only to see a dark red fleshy lump under his sole, shaped like a conch. He picked it up, it felt warm to the touch. He stood there, a flash of shock in his eyes. This thing in his hand. Its appearance matched exactly the description of sea moss in the records. This was actually one of the main heavenly treasures the breeding program sought. The breeding team had been searching for sea moss for months, but hadn't found a single one, and he had just stepped on one. He looked up into the distance, and saw 7 or 8 sea moss scattered on the beach. Wang Mezi and Zhu Mo were suddenly heartbroken. Zhu Mo looked at Wang Mezi, who was closest to him, and shouted, "Quick, pick up the sea moss. That dark red fleshy lump is sea moss. Hurry and pick it up." All the core breeding members had already left to explore the island, right? Chen hadn't gone. He was standing at the exit of the high-speed rail, which was also the top of the island's small hill, staring at the bamboo shoot in his hand, grinning foolishly, his mind wandering. His gaze gradually drifted. This brown bamboo shoot in his hand, he had once found one in his foster parents' cave. It was a mountain embryo, better than a mountain child embryo. Now he had obtained a second one. The process of getting it wasn't complicated. He picked it up by the roadside. It was growing in a crack in a rock nearby. He just pulled it out. Just then, a voice transmission talisman came through with Lame Monkey's excited voice. "Young master, hurry, come quick." Chen raised an eyebrow slightly, stuffed the mountain embryo into his storage ring, and strode down the mountain. There were no special requirements for storing mountain embryos. It was quite casual, just stuff them into the storage ring. A mountain stream in the jungle. Chen stood by the bank, gazing at the river flowing down from the mountain. The water was extremely clear, and in the middle of the riverbed there were many stones. Stone trees grow in the crevices of the rocks. The flowers are quite beautiful to behold. It remained silent for a long time, speaking not a word. Those flowers were no ordinary blooms. Their exterior appeared pure white as snow. The surroundings were lovely, like a young maiden's delicate form. One couldn't help but want to bring them to the nose and inhale deeply. 9 petals unfurled gracefully, like a budding maiden in the bloom of youth. The stamens were faintly pink, tender, nothing else. They were none other than snow lotuses, and fully mature snow lotuses at that. That one dwelling on Nameless Mountain had spent 100 years, nurturing a single snow lotus, and this snow lotus, it even brought about an encounter at the immortal slaying sacred ground of the Guangxi Plain. Now, there are 13 here, 13 storks. Such heavenly treasures are hard to circulate on the market. Otherwise, just these 13 snow lotuses would be worth a fortune. Don't move yet, Chen Fan said, taking a deep breath. After picking a snow lotus, it must be placed in a low-temperature environment within 1 hour. Our return trip takes longer than an hour. Next time, we'll bring the tools. The high-speed rail is extremely fast, but even speed has its limits. This place is far from the eternal night continent. The distance exceeds the entire length of breeding line 1. A single trip already takes over an hour. If we pick the snow lotuses now, they'll wither by the time we get back. Just then, Zhu Mo and Wang Mezi came jogging over from the side. Prison, Master, Zhu Mo said excitedly, opening the jar in his hand, revealing the seaweed soaked in water inside. We found 11 stalks of seaweed on the beach in total. They're all here. I remember the preservation method for seaweed. It needs to be wrapped in salt. I don't have any salt on me, so I poured seawater in instead. Not bad, Chen Fan grinned. The discovery of this Hope Island is of great significance to breeding. Chen Fan nodded in satisfaction. He took the beach harvest into his storage ring and worked off into the distance. Take another look around, see if there are any more surprises. Then, Zhu Mo and Wang Mezi began exploring deeper into the island. This island showed no trace of human presence. It looked like a private garden. Just then, ear-piercing screeches rang out from far to near, rising and falling without end. The branches in the surrounding jungle shook rapidly. The green canopy above seemed to come alive. Don't move, Zhu Mo's face tightened. He quickly raised his large blade and shouted urgently into the communicator. Prison master, I have a situation here. I don't know what's happening yet. Soon, a flood of afterimages rushed toward him from the distant jungle, no longer hiding their forms. They shrieked wildly, branches threshing. They were monkeys, hundreds of them at a glance. They were surrounded by a monkey horde. Hundreds of monkeys stared fixedly at the two of them, ready to attack at any moment. Wang Mezi and Zhu Mo took a deep breath, their hands gripping their blades tightly. Kill, stand behind me and watch my show. What are you saying? Wang Mezi's face turned cold as he too drew his blade from his robe, standing back to back with Zhu Mo in the jungle. Their eyes locked onto the monkeys and the treetops. I've been soaking in the Jade Pavilion these past few days. My cultivation isn't weak either. It's a good day to see some blood. Zhu Mo grinned. I never thought my final battle partner would be you. I once imagined I'd die in the seabed ghost nest 4 years from now, during that landing battle. Dying beside the prison master, with the Monkey King's sharp howl. Just then, several robust male monkeys charged down from the treetops, launching their attack. Their red guns bared in a grin. Yellow-white fangs. The siege began. A monkey swung in from the side. Its claws shot out like lightning, aiming for Zhu Mo's face. Another attacked almost simultaneously from behind. The other one struck from behind almost at the same time. They cooperate quite seamlessly. A thick, wild, and primal stench fills the air. Scratch. The sound of claws tearing through skin rings out. Excited howls erupt from the monkey pack. These monkeys' eyes are filled with killing intent and savagery. And they're not in a hurry to kill. It's as if they want to slowly torment their prey. Zhu Mo and Wang Mezi stand back to back, leaning against each other. The monkey pack attacks in multiple waves. After several rounds, he's already struggling to hold his ground. His body bears several fresh wounds. Blood streams down, and the shadows flickering around them grow more numerous. More monkeys rush in to join the fray. Damn it, Zhu Mo's face is pale, whether from blood loss or sheer terror. His lips are tinged blue, but Wang Mezi's death would be far too agonizing. Like he's just a snack. Luckily, Wang Mezi is still gasping for breath. Maybe he won't die after all. This damn thing might actually work. I feel the ground shaking. And then hey, wait, Zhu Mo suddenly snaps to attention, sensing the ever-trembling ground, and the monkeys in the treetops around them. Two are growing restless and agitated from panic. After a moment, he suddenly realizes and grins. He roars loudly, "Beast Lord!" And right here, a thunderous, earth-shaking roar suddenly erupts. Trees in the jungle are rapidly toppling. A colossal creature, like a bulldozer, is closing in fast. The next moment, an enormous crocodile, with eyes the size of lanterns, filled with murderous intent, charges forward, smashing through countless trees. It rushes right up to the two of them, leaving a long, clear path through the jungle behind it. Chen Fan steps down from the crocodile's back, He stands beside YY, glancing up at the panicked monkeys in the treetops. He tilts his head, pauses, then grins. YY, your turn. Receiving the command, YY opens its blood-filled maw and roars again. Then it charges toward the trees where the monkeys are perched. With each impact, it sends sturdy, thick trees flying. The monkeys in the treetops scatter like ingredients tossed into a boiling pot, flying everywhere in chaos. The sheer force is evident. In the blink of an eye, the monkey pack flees in panic. They don't even dare to attempt a counterattack. YY Jumo pants heavily, standing still, leaning on Wang Mazi. He stares at YY, whose entire body radiates the aura of a fierce beast. Only now does he remember that YY is also a beast, and a powerful one at that. A high-tier beast that once dealt a fatal blow to the Ghost King. Not some docile pet. The monkey pack scatters in all directions. But YY's lantern-sized eyes lock onto the Monkey King, which is fleeing swiftly into the jungle. It gives chase without hesitation, ignoring the scattered monkeys entirely. This monkey is clearly larger than the others. Easy to spot, but it's also far more cowardly. When the pack scattered in panic, this Monkey King was the first to turn tail and run. The Monkey King is fast, but YY is faster. YY may be massive, but its speed is no less impressive. Now, like a bulldozer in a frenzy, it charges straight into the jungle, sending countless trees flying. After the trees settle, YY emerges like a triumphant general returning from battle. Its blood-filled maw holds the barely alive Monkey King. Its tail slaps the ground repeatedly, proud and majestic. Its eyes brimming with pride, it crawls before Chen Fan and spits out the Monkey King. Well done. Chen Fan smiles at YY. This is exactly why he brought YY along on this trip. Such a large island might harbor mutated beasts. The best way to deal with mutated beasts isn't to build defenses. Mutated beasts have intelligence. Once they sense danger, they won't charge in recklessly. Instead, they'll keep their distance. Though they pose no immediate threat, leaving them on the island would still be a lingering menace. Dealing with mutated beasts, the best approach is to bring along a beast stronger than these ones. Like YY, there are few beasts that can beat YY, even if YY can't win, as long as YY keeps the enemy tied up. Once he finishes building the structure, he can take them down with ease. Looking back now, bringing YY along was an extremely wise decision. The warden, having survived a brush with death, spent the weekend, and Wang Mazi supporting each other, worked up to him. A flicker of gratitude showed in their eyes. Good thing the warden arrived in time, or we'd have been done for. Chen Fan shook his head. This is an uncharted island, and it's indeed quite dangerous. Though there's no trace of humans, other dangers are bound to exist. Then he looked down at the ground. At this Monkey King, filled with terror and panic, yet too afraid to flee. After a long pause, he said softly, YY, beat him into submission and take him as a little underling. YY let out an excited, low growl and understanding, then grabbed the Monkey King and quickly scurried aside. Like a victorious general carrying his spoils of war, he had no intention of killing this Monkey King. Every monkey here is a resource. What kind of resource or ability, he didn't yet know, but a monkey troop can't be without a king, just like a wolf pack can't be without a wolf leader. Every race must have a leader. Kill this one, and another will rise, and the monkeys on this island were extremely numerous, impossible to wipe out completely. Rather than exterminate them, it was better to subdue this Monkey King, and have him manage the rest. Especially since he noticed those monkey head fruits seemed to be planted by these monkeys, or rather, cultivated by them. The reason the monkeys attacked them was because they were recklessly harvesting the monkey head fruits. Once they finished picking this batch, they wouldn't replant them. The rest would still have to be handled by these monkeys, so it was better to subdue them, and have them help cultivate the monkey head fruits. Subduing a beast is a troublesome affair. Each beast has a different temperament, and requires a different method. Not every beast is as easy to subdue as YY, so he didn't plan to subdue this Monkey King himself. Instead, he let YY do it. A human subduing a beast takes some effort, but one beast subduing another only needs a good beating. Chen Fan didn't linger there long. Instead, he took Wang Mazi and the weekend crew back to the high-speed rail exit. They began taking pills to heal their injuries, while he continued wandering around. On the island, aside from these monkeys, there were no other natives for now. The monkeys' main daily food seemed to be the monkey head fruits. Quite extravagant. The price of a single monkey head fruit, a heavenly treasure. He didn't know the exact market value. He'd never seen it in circulation, but he guessed it had to be at least 2,000 or 3,000. No way 11 of them, and these monkeys eat one a day. What a waste. Just then, Chen Fan suddenly saw YY, pride written all over his face, swaggering back toward him, and beside him, followed a timid-looking Monkey King. The Monkey King held a chicken leg in his hand. That chicken leg looked extremely familiar. It was exactly the one made by Fan Yuzhao Shenping, the Lord Lu. Wai Wei let out a low growl, as if signaling that he'd finished the conquest. Chen Fan, expressionless, gazed at the crocodile and monkey before him. He had a pretty good idea how Wai Wei had done it. First, beat him into submission, then pull out his beloved chicken leg and offer it to the other, and then the Monkey King gave in. It was obvious, this Monkey King really liked the chicken leg in his hand. In fact, he felt Wai Wei didn't need to give away such a tasty treat. Anything would have done, and the Monkey King would probably have loved it. After all, on this island, there wasn't much else to eat normally. I wonder where Wai Wei learned that method of taming first a strike, then a sweetener. First a strike, then a sweetener. She's way too smooth with that tactic. Not bad at all, Chen Fan said with a smile. Anyway, this matter is settled. Wai Wei, ask him for me. Do they usually live on the island and eat monkey head fruits as their staple? Do they know how to plant monkey head fruits or anything like that? Just ask him about the island's situation, or whether there are any other people on the island. He can communicate, basically normally with Wai Wei, through eye contact and body language. But he can't do that with the Monkey King. No need to worry though, Wai Wei can handle it. Wai Wei understood instantly. He turned to the Monkey King and let out a low growl. The Monkey King immediately waved its arms and responded. Soon, Wai Wei growled again. Chen Fan nodded thoughtfully. From the information Wai Wei conveyed, he learned that this island hadn't seen humans for a very, very long time. They were the first group of humans to set foot here, and no ghost creatures had ever landed on this island either. That was rather unusual. There were plenty of ghost creatures in the sea, but none had set foot on this island. In truth, he had always wondered how this island came to be. So many heavenly treasures and earthly rarities. They couldn't have appeared naturally, could they? It looked as if someone had planted them. But if someone planted them, why was no one harvesting them? Could it be some ancient power that planted them, but was wiped out by a ghost nest before they could harvest? Now he had the answer. These monkeys cultivated them. The monkeys' main task was planting trees, specifically monkey head fruit trees. This fruit was their primary food source. Just one monkey head fruit could keep them full for a whole day. Everything he saw now was a result of these monkeys' labor over many years. In other words, their group was a bit like bandits, running onto land that others had painstakingly cultivated for years and plundering it wildly. But maybe plundering wasn't the right word. Chen Fan looked at the scene before him with a strange expression. The Monkey King was now roaring, calling all its monkey subjects to gather before it. Wai Wei lay on the ground with an air of authority. The Monkey King led its subjects test Wai Wei one by one, letting Wai Wei inspect them. Wai Wei would spit out a chicken leg from his mouth and give one to each monkey. The moment each monkey bit into the chicken leg, their eyes turned red instantly. Clearly, this was far tastier than the monkey head fruits they used to eat, or the fish they caught by the shore. They all excitedly bowed and scraped before Wai Wei. These monkeys, who had seemed so ferocious moments ago, were now incredibly docile, even obedient, falling silent for a long time. He hadn't expected. Wai Wei really had a knack for taming other beasts. After Wai Wei finished his inspection, he turned to Chen Fan and let out a low growl. The monkeys immediately understood, lining up in a neat row, facing Chen Fan and bowing in unison. He understood the message Wai Wei conveyed, that although Wai Wei was their leader, he also had a leader, and that leader was Chen Fan. Wai Wei growled again. Perfect. Chen Fan let out a long sigh and said with some emotion, when we get back, I'll establish a beast hall. Wai Wei, you'll be the master of that beast hall. From now on, handle all matters concerning beasts. Wai Wei had too much experience in dealing with beasts. As they developed, they would surely encounter more and more beasts. At that point, Wai Wei would be the one to handle it. Afterward, they explored for about an hour. Chen Fan and the others returned to the high-speed rail once more. By now, they were already on their way back. Those monkeys were still busy picking monkey heads, and they were excitedly looking forward to it. Tomorrow, they would come again and bring fresh, hot, delicious braised dishes. The journey was long. When they arrived at Fanyu, it was already dark in Fanyu. The high-speed rail didn't stop. After leaving the port, it cut straight through the night and entered Fanyu. By then, Zyro Q had already received the news and was prepared. He worked out of the camp. In his hand, he held the identity token representing the Beast Pavilion Master, a specially made identity token. It could be perfectly slotted into the gap Wai Wei had found earlier. Normally, if he wanted to put it away, he could swallow it into his stomach. If he didn't want to store it, he could slot it into the gap on his front paw. Wai Wei looked very excited. Holding the token, he kept thumping his tail on the ground. Chen Fan looked at Wai Wei, who was thumping his tail on the ground, and smiled helplessly. Now, the official appointment for Wai Wei was being issued. Fanyu would establish a new Beast Pavilion. Wai Wei would serve as the Beast Pavilion Master. He would oversee all first-hand matters in Fanyu. Soon, one night passed. Day broke. Chen Fan packed some luggage, ready to go on a long trip. He was going to continue building the undersea tunnel. The undersea tunnel had only completed its first phase. It only led to the island. There was still a long way to go. It needed to reach the new continent. These heavenly treasures were valuable to Fan Yu, but they also required enough ghostly knowledge to bring out the true value of these heavenly and earthly treasures. And from the island to Fan Yu, this stretch of the journey was already quite far. A round trip took a lot of time. So, for the next period, he would need to temporarily live on the island. He would set up a simple shelter on the island with Weiwei and continue digging the undersea tunnel. This would save the time spent traveling back and forth every day. Before leaving, Zhu Hu would go with him. Wang Qi would be in charge of guarding the home. Prison Master Wang Qi hesitated a bit. As for the island Fan Yu communication plan, should it be postponed for a while? Chen Fan nodded lightly. There was no rush for this matter for now. If enough ghostly knowledge was harvested from the new continent, the Fan Yu communication might not be made public. It would become our exclusive Fan Yu method. If there was any urgent news, you could just send a sound transmission. Yes, he had once said, if someone could truly send a message back to Fan Yu from Hope Island, he would consider them impressive. Hope Island was over 1,000 kilometers away from the Eternal Night continent. With such a long distance, ordinary sound transmission talismans were completely unusable. But he could use Fan Yu's signal tower. Of course, the signal tower couldn't be placed on the sea surface. It was a building that needed to be set up on land. But Weiwei, since he could dig a tunnel under the sea, then at some tunnel node, digging a larger pit to place the signal tower was naturally no problem at all. At that moment, in the middle section of the island tunnel, the signal tower was already placed. Messages between Hope Island and Fan Yu could be transmitted instantly. Even if any unexpected incident occurred, he could immediately receive the news and rush back. The Fan Yu of today was no longer the weak faction it had been in the rainy season. Now, Fan Yu's various foundations had gradually been replenished. Sea embryos, mountain embryos, and other heavenly treasures had all been stored in the warehouse. Properly kept, Chen Fan didn't linger long. After giving Wang Qi a few more instructions, he took Zhu Hu, Weiwei, and the others, and boarded into high-speed rail again, setting off on the journey to the island. Building a giant city didn't take much time. It only required enough ghost stones. The new continent must be conquered at all costs. The Janbei defense line will fall any day now. After nearly 2 hours of travel, the high-speed train finally arrived at Hope Island. As soon as they stepped out, they saw a large pile of neatly arranged monkey head fruits on the ground. A large group of monkeys sat obediently nearby, their faces full of anticipation. Clearly, they had been waiting for a long time. Upon seeing them, they scratched their heads repeatedly, both excited and timid. Excellent. Chen Fan grinned. These natives on the island were far too sensible. He waved his hand. Weiwei, lying on the ground nearby, held a large vat in his mouth and began handing out chicken legs one by one. Zhao Shengping had worked all night boiling a huge batch. Each monkey sat obediently on the ground, taking the chicken legs with cautious excitement. Soon, hundreds of monkeys devoured the chicken legs in their hands in unison. Then, under Weiwei's direction, they carried the monkey head fruits on the ground to the high-speed train behind them. Weiwei, time for us to work. Chen Fan smiled as he watched this scene, then turned to Weiwei beside him. Weiwei let out a low roar, and in an instant, dove back into the deep well. After finding the right direction, he began carving the undersea tunnel again. Meanwhile, Chen Fan sat on another high-speed train, following behind to continue laying copper pipes, heading straight for the thunderstorm sea. Behind them, in the tunnel, several high-speed trains were already running non-stop, transporting large batches of monkey head fruits to the breeding grounds. At the same time, in the other end, in the vast Guanmao plain at the front line of the Eternal Night continent, a perfectly straight, endless city wall stood like a dividing line, splitting the plain in two. On the left side of the wall, a massive crowd of humans was constantly bustling about. Each person bore obvious wounds and torn skin. On the right side of the wall, lay countless ghost houses fallen in pools of blood. At that moment, many gates along the wall were open. A large number of humans carried tools out of the wall, quickly digging out ghost stones from the ghost house corpses, and collecting useful ghost materials like ghost grains, including the treasure from each corpse. The wall stood a full 30 meters high, looking like an insurmountable heavenly moat at a glance. It was nearly impossible to cross. But now, the wall's surface bore many scars. The original color of the wall was no longer visible. All that could be seen was blood, and the stains of green viscous liquid. Countless people rushed back and forth atop the wall. Some repaired the damaged areas from last night, some inspected the consumption of each turret, and replenished enough ghost stones, while others built new turrets. There were hundreds of thousands of people, bustling about on this endless wall, like ants building their nest. Tay, a middle-aged man clad in armor, covered in wounds, panted. As he walked up to a young man, somewhat anxiously, he said, "What are you standing around for? Hurry up and repair the wall. Last night, the ghost nest suddenly became much fiercer. Tonight, there will definitely be an even more violent assault. The young man did not speak. He just crouched on the wall, staring at a corner. There, ants had built a passageway, seemingly red ants, using mucus and sand grains to form a tunnel. Such tunnels usually appeared on tree trunks, but rarely on a city wall. Ant colonies build these tunnels to fend off natural enemies. The next moment, the young man extended his right hand and pressed down hard on the tunnel. The tunnel shattered instantly. The young man said, somewhat dazed, I was thinking, does the defense line we built really have any value? Or perhaps it's just like these ants' tunnel. We think it's indestructible, but in reality it crumbles with a light touch. The middle-aged man in armor frowned deeply, but did not reply immediately. He knew the recent events had hit this young architect hard. He just waited patiently. Soon, a swarm of ants poured out from both sides of the shattered tunnel, beginning to mend the broken passage. In no time at all, the shattered passage was completely repaired. You see, the middle-aged man chuckled. Even if the defense line shatters, more people will come to fill and mend it. This defense line of ours is called Line 7, the most crucial line on the Eternal Night continent. Right now, the main force of the Ghost Nest is assaulting the front lines. What flows to us is only part of the Ghost Tide. We won't be under too much pressure, but we must hold firm. Once our defense line breaks, behind us lies a flat, open plain. Countless factions and common folk, utterly powerless to stop a Ghost Nest of this scale. Countless lives would be lost. I know this. The young architect rose, standing at the edge of the city wall, gazing into the distance. About several thousand meters away, the coastline. The new path. Of course I know it. I just can't quite understand something. Line 7 protects their safety. Without Line 7, everyone here on the Guandan Plain would die. They should be grateful to us. But why aren't they grateful? They won't even spare some ghost stones. The middle-aged man was momentarily at a loss, unsure what to say. This battle line was built by the Eternal Night Hall. The ghost stones used daily to maintain the line are also allocated by the Eternal Night Hall. The Eternal Night Hall is not a faction, but an organization. Any faction can join this organization. The strongest powers of the Eternal Night continent joined hands to establish it, encompassing the entry of many factions, tooling all resources together, and deploying several defense lines across the Eternal Night continent to resist the Ghost Nest's invasion. Many only know that when Eternal Night descends, Ghost Nests appear. They don't realize that the ghost creatures emerging within the Eternal Night continent are merely minor fry. The truly terrifying ghost creatures are all in the sea, ceaselessly trying to surge onto the continent, and these ghost creatures are all blocked outside the defense lines laid down by the Eternal Night Hall. If any single defense line falls, the disaster it brings would be catastrophic. The middle-aged man was silent for a long time before speaking hoarsely. Actually, the situation on the Eternal Night front isn't good. Many ghost nests have gained intelligence and become far more troublesome. Several defense lines have already fallen. Behind the fallen lines, the Eternal Night Hall paid a tremendous price to set up temporary lines, blocking the ghost nest outside again. But because of that, we've lost a lot of territory. Many have died. The cost of those losses is also enormous. The Eternal Night Hall can no longer send people to help us resolve these matters. Even the ghost stones they send are squeezed out with difficulty. We've already sent people to the rear to the Guandan Plain to collect ghost stones from the major factions. The results aren't great, but we've gathered a little. If the Eternal Night Hall could send people, there wouldn't be so many problems. Hand over ghost stones or die. No ghost stones, no life. Now that the Eternal Night continent faces a crisis of annihilation, no one will speak of righteousness or morality. They want to do the same, but they clearly lack the strength. They are only responsible for guarding and maintaining this line, with the authority to use all the structures on it, but they obviously can't march into those factions' territories and clash head-on with them. The young man did not speak. He just gazed into the distance at the sea, like a forest struck by heavenly fire. The best way to extinguish it is to cut down all the trees outside the area where the heavenly fire spreads, so the fire can't ride the wind. If the defense line is breached, the emergency measure is the same. Further behind, set up a temporary line. Of course, the cost is enormous, and the people within the old and temporary defense zones would have almost no chance of survival. The strongholds of those factions are enough to deal with ordinary ghost nests within the continent, but if they face a ghost nest landing from the seabed, well, that would be laughable. The city wall beneath them is a grade 6 wall, a line made of grade 6 walls, stretching 97 kilometers. Line 7 itself could still fall. What would those factions use to defend? In recent years, more and more nodes have failed. The Eternal Night Hall needs to build more and more defensive lines. Some are already barely holding. The middle-aged man had intended to encourage the young architect to lift his spirits, but as he spoke, he too grew weary. He leaned against the wall, gazing toward the sea, murmuring, he knew that the Eternal Night continent might very well not survive this eternal night. The Eternal Night continent is an entire continent, a complete landmass. Its exact shape is unclear, but it's certainly not square. Surrounded by seas on all sides, and at the center of the Eternal Night continent lies a great formation. Let's call it a great formation for now. What it truly is, he didn't know. Such classified information was beyond what he could access. All he knew was that this great formation protected the Eternal Night continent, preventing the ghost nests in the sea from cleansing it. But in recent years, more and more nodes of the great formation have failed. This means the ghost nests in the sea can land through these failed nodes, and the Eternal Night Hall, responsible for building defensive lines at the positions of these failed nodes, seals the ghost nests outside the lines. If a defensive line falls, it means the Eternal Night continent must quickly construct a new line behind it, several times longer than the original, connecting the nodes on both sides, isolating the lost area. Such an expense would be astronomical. Several frontline defenses have already been breached. Once a certain number of defenses are broken, and the Eternal Night Hall lacks resources to replenish them, then what awaits the Eternal Night continent is an endless tide of ghost nests pouring through the breach, flooding into the continent's interior. The other defenses would also lose their purpose. Oh right, the young man suddenly thought of something. What about the Jiangbei defense line? Hasn't that one been abandoned for a long time? Has that line been reinforced? No, the middle-aged man shook his head. The aura left by that one before he left is enough to intimidate the ghost nests there for several years. In about 4 years, the aura will dissipate. Until then, that line won't fall. The reason we sent that one to guard it alone back then was twofold. First, his lifespan was running out, so letting him guard the Jiangbei line alone meant he could claim all the heavenly Dao's blessings for his defense. Second, the ghost nests under the Jiangbei Sea weren't particularly dangerous. That one alone was enough. It said the Eternal Night Hall plans to wait 4 years. If that one hasn't returned by then, they'll send someone to Jiangbei to rebuild the Jiangbei defense line and seal that gap. But after hesitating for a moment, the middle-aged man let out a soft sigh and spoke. If it weren't for the fact that once the Eternal Night continent is conquered, the surviving humans would instantly lose their racial identity and all their means. The Eternal Night Hall would have long used all its resources to build a small, highly secure city. Why would they care about the Eternal Night continent? No one cares about our lives either. The young man suddenly laughed. We guard the defenses, and the Heavenly Tao deems us meritorious, bestowing blessings upon us. But if we fail, the Heavenly Tao instantly denies our racial identity and acknowledges the ghost race's identity instead. What kind of Heavenly Tao is that? Isn't it just a fence-sitter? The middle-aged man's mouth twitched. He looked up at the overcast sky, fearing a lightning bolt might strike down. After a long pause, he said faintly, the Heavenly Tao is different from humans. It has no self-awareness. The Heavenly Tao merely sensed the Eternal Night continent being invaded, and instinctively defended it. It said that the core great formation is the Heavenly Tao's own doing, and every time a piece of the Eternal Night continent is invaded, the Heavenly Tao's power diminishes a little, creating more gaps, until humanity lost its ground. The Heavenly Tao of the Eternal Night continent also perished along with it. Afterward, a new Heavenly Tao would be born. This new Heavenly Tao acknowledged the ghost race's identity. This was exactly what those ghost dwellings sought. It wasn't being a turncoat. The Heavenly Tao of the Eternal Night continent would accompany us until the moment we lost our last piece of territory. It would fight to the death alongside the human race. Just then, a soldier clad in armor trotted quickly up to the two of them. Reporting, sir, the Fenchen Tower, the largest force on the Guandan plane of the Celestial Masters, is empty, people and all. By the time we found out, they'd all fled. They only left behind some outer disciples. No one knows where they went. The fierce young man was so angry he nearly laughed. This Fengchen Tower has passed down its legacy for so many years, built so many structures, and they just abandon it all to avoid coughing up a few ghost stones. The middle-aged man pondered for a moment, then suddenly grinned. This means they might have caught wind of something. If nothing unexpected happens, it should be that the Eternal Night Hall has sent someone. Is the first faction to take the lead in refusing to pay ghost stones. The Fengchen Tower was bound to be purged. Looks like we won't have to worry about ghost stones for a while. The next moment, a massive airship rapidly approached the city wall at breakneck speed, until it hovered in the air, stopping at the same height as the wall. In the airship, over 100 various turrets were built. Armed to the teeth, a man in black pants, with his upper body bare, strode toward the two with a grim expression. He pulled from his chest a token and said hoarsely, Tenyi of the Eternal Night Hall, take me to those who refuse to hand over ghost stones. The man exuded an aura of extreme brutality, his eyes bloodshot, as if he hadn't slept in ages. His words carried a chilling tone. Every move conveying one message. Today, someone had to die. Meanwhile, at the reproduction base, recent days had seen rapid development in Jiangbei. The four regions of Janbei, once blocked by a great river, had stagnant trade, but with the opening of the reproduction high-speed rail, trade had become extremely lively. And Hope Island, Chen Fan had set up a temporary camp on the beach. Chen Fan sat on the city wall, leaning wearily on a chair, gazing into the distance. His thoughts gradually drifted away. He and YY had spent today repairing the undersea tunnel, but they were still far from the Thunder Rain Sea. To open an undersea tunnel to the new continent, it would probably take another 2 months. The sky was growing dark, but night hadn't fully fallen yet. He could faintly see in the distance the Thunder Rain Sea, like a heavenly moat, stretching endlessly, almost cutting off the entire world. According to Wang Mazi, the Thunder Rain Sea was filled with countless ghostly creatures, floating in the surface, and they didn't only appear at night. Young Master Zhu Hu looked toward the distant Thunder Rain Sea, hesitating as he said, "Do you think this Thunder Rain Sea might have enveloped the entire Eternal Night continent?" "That's possible." Chen Fan nodded lightly. "In fact, the likelihood isn't small." Zhu Hu paused briefly before continuing. According to Wang Mazi, the ghostly creatures in the Thunder Rain Sea are all in extreme agony, as if enduring torment. Could it be that this Thunder Rain Sea is a protective barrier for the Eternal Night continent, shielding it and preventing other ghostly creatures from charging into it? Possible. Chen Fan nodded lightly again. The information he had was far too little. Anything was possible. The only thing he knew was that the Eternal Night continent was in grave danger. The situation is not good. This matter, the fact that no one has come to Jiang North for so long makes it clear. That person left the Janbei defense line, and no one has guarded it for so long, yet no one came to check. This alone proves that the frontline soldiers are already stretched extremely thin. The rear is in peril, but they can't spare the effort. At this moment, he cannot place his hopes on anyone else. He can only rely on himself. Zhu Hu muttered to himself in a low voice, if those ghost dwellings from the new continent were destroyed, and they intended to attack the Eternal Night continent, but were trapped in the Thunder Rain Sea, then at least they should have taken the ghost stones when they left, not scattered them there. What exactly is the Thunder Rain Sea, and how was this forbidden land formed? Qin Fan sat on the chair, picked up the scalding hot tea, took a sip, then gazed into the distance. The Thunder Rain Sea gradually shrouded by the night. He had a fort to build a heaven-piercing pillar within the Thunder Rain Sea. With the lightning and thunder raging above the sea, it would likely be filled in less than the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. The absorption progress was only probable, but the heaven-piercing pillar might not withstand such intense lightning. It could be directly shattered. Time slipped by bit. Soon, nearly 3 months had passed. Now it was already the Eternal Night calendar, year 379, late August, and the scorching heat had arrived. It had been half a year since the breeding and the slaying of the Ghost King. Soon, a new rainy season would begin. The progress of the undersea tunnel was far slower than they had imagined. YY was slightly out of breath, digging continuously through the rock deep beneath the seabed. Chen Fan followed closely behind, his face heavy, arranging copper pipes. The digging speed was countless times slower than before. The geology here was extremely hard, and even with YY's methods, the digging was painfully slow. Moreover, their current position was directly beneath the seabed of the Thunder Rain Sea. Right below it, they were attempting to sneak through from the seabed, trying to bypass this place that was an absolute forbidden land for both humans and ghostly beings. "Stop!" Chen Fan suddenly shouted. YY instantly halted his advance. Behind the excavated rock wall ahead, countless white lines, emitting a faint glow, appeared on the surface. They were formation patterns. They had encountered many such formations along the way. The solution was to go around them. YY skillfully changed direction, doing his best to bypass this formation. At the deepest underground rock chamber, beneath the Thunder Rain Sea, countless formations were hidden. These formations were not large, far smaller than the blood array the Ghost King had used to break through, but their numbers were immense. Almost every stretch of digging revealed one. He had asked YY, and YY said they could be broken, but it would take considerable time, so he chose to take a detour, not to save time, but because even a formation YY could barely shatter was certainly no low-level array. Perhaps the Thunder Rain Sea was truly meant to protect the Eternal Night continent. If he destroyed this formation, the Thunder Rain Sea would lose its effect, and a flood of imprisoned ghost tombs would surge into the Eternal Night continent. His Janbei defense line was not yet complete. He could not afford that consequence. Whatever effect this formation had, it was better not to destroy it for now. "Continue," Chen Fan said, his eyes bloodshot, his voice hoarse as he stared intently at the ghost skin map in his hands. He gave the order, over these months, to meet the deadline. He had barely slept. Just then, suddenly, YY made a fierce lunge, but couldn't fully control his momentum and slammed heavily into the tunnel ahead. At first, he was startled, but soon turned around excitedly to face Chen Fan, and let out a low growl. "Well done, YY," Chen Fan smiled. "The rock ahead is finally not so hard." This also meant they had left the Thunder Rain Sea and officially entered the waters of the new continent. He looked toward the massive white dot and the ghost skin map in his hand. That white dot was the new continent. They had arrived. They had successfully crossed the perilous Thunderstorm Sea region. Setting off, he grinned and looked at the ghost skin map, pointing ahead. Heading straight for the new continent, bypassing other islands to land. Wang Mezi and his crew had never set foot on this new continent themselves. They only inferred from the conditions on several islands that this new continent might have been traversed. As for the specifics, Wang Mezi didn't know either. He was the first human to set foot on this new continent, or rather, the first human to set foot on it after its fall. After another month of travel, a tunnel. Suddenly, a 90-degree vertical goat horn kept rising. The tunnel turned into a deep well. As YY dug swiftly, with a crash, the soil lay shattered. The moment Lunlust's sunlight poured down, Chen Fan finally crawled out from underground. After emerging, he didn't have time to observe his surroundings first. In the blink of an eye, he instantly deployed a ghost fire and a city wall, each side 10 meters long, rising abruptly from the ground. The wall's grade had already reached an astonishing level 6 within the fan domain. There wasn't a single wall uniformly at level 6. At this grade, even a Ghost King attacking with full force would only be tickling it. 4 walls, 30 meters high rising from the ground, almost instantly blocked his view. Though the cost wasn't low, he felt not a shred of regret. Instead, standing again at the camp's center, he looked around at the walls. Quickly, atop the walls, he built a total of 20 max-level Shikigami cannon towers. After finishing all this, he held his breath and listened patiently. Outside the walls, only the rustling wind could be heard. Otherwise, it was eerily quiet. Looking down at the camp, this area he had enclosed was filled with ghost valleys and scattered ghost stones, left uncollected. After a while, certain there was no other movement, he led YY up the wall. Standing on the wall, Chen Fan gripped the parapet with both hands, gazing into the distance. His body gradually froze in place, his eyes filled with shock. After a long time, he murmured, "How many people must have died here?" His location was at the edge of the new continent, and the beach. There were no grains of sand. The beach was made of oddly shaped reefs. The continent's end was nowhere in sight. The landing spot was a barren plain stretching endlessly. The terrain resembled that of the Janbei wasteland. The ground was littered with ghost valleys and ghost stones. Looking out, rolling with the wind from time to time, those were once ghost corpses, but over time, they had turned into ghost valleys. Occasionally, a patch of sand was blown away on the plain, revealing more ghost valleys hidden beneath. It was clear that not just the surface, but the ground likely held even more ghost valleys and stones. Beyond that, his gaze lingered on the plain, on those several defense lines stretching endlessly. At a glance, there were 7 in total, each line less than 100 meters apart, almost pressed together. Of course, the walls on these defense lines had long since completely collapsed. One could only infer their past glory from today's ruins. His gaze stopped on hundreds of enormous ghost valleys. The wall beneath him was a level 6 wall, 30 meters high and extremely imposing. But those massive ghost valleys, even in death, their bodies lying collapsed on the ground, were still over 10 meters tall. It was easy to imagine. In their prime, they stood dozens of meters high. At that height, such ghost creatures leading a horde in an attack, not to mention their actual power. The psychological intimidation alone would strike first. Chen Fan stood on the wall with a complex expression, gazing down at the scene before him. He had once witnessed the final battle of the ancient Janbei defense line. That was from the records left by the immortal exterminator. What he saw was the most brutal war he had ever known. What he saw was the most brutal war he had ever witnessed. This was also the largest ghost nest he had ever seen, larger than the ghost nests he had encountered during the rainy season, far greater in scale. But on that battlefield, he had not seen such an enormous ghost house. In their prime, they stood dozens of meters high. The battles fought here were even more brutal than the ancient Janbei defense line. Chen Fan led YY out of the city wall, heading toward the nearest defense line. Stepping over countless ghost valleys, he stood atop the ruins of the city wall. The wall was extremely wide. From the ruins, one could tell this wall was a full 30 meters wide. 30 meters wide. The 6th-level wall behind him was only 10 meters wide. Even horse-drawn carriages could run atop the wall. He didn't know what level a 30-meter-wide wall was, but he figured it must be higher than a 6th-level wall, perhaps an 8th-level wall, or even a 9th-level wall. He looked down at the shattered debris beneath his feet. It was the wreckage of a cannon turret. He couldn't identify what kind of turret it was, but he could see on the turret's remains faint, blurred patterns, which seemed to match the patterns in the ruined city wall. He worked forward, reaching the highest point of the first defense line's ruins. Standing there, he looked back at the 6 ruined lines behind him. Within the 7 defense lines, countless ghost valleys and ghost stones lay scattered across the ground, but beyond the 7th defense line, the ghost valleys and ghost stones gradually disappeared. It was obvious The ghost nests had broken through all 7 defense lines, charging unimpeded into the depths of the continent to begin their slaughter. No one remained to stop these ghost nests. He roughly guessed the level of these walls. Perhaps they were 10th level, meaning max level walls. That was why 7 defense lines were built, rather than pooling all resources to forge a single, stronger line. The max level for a wall might indeed be 10. But if even a 10th level wall couldn't stop the ghost nests, then where was the hope for survival? Or perhaps the conditions beyond the 10th level wall were too harsh. The architects of this continent could not only fail to raise the wall to the 11th level, but couldn't even comprehend what the upgrade conditions were. It was also possible that upgrading to an 11th level city